Thank you, Dina, for your very interesting talk. Our third speaker is Jaroslaw Kuisz from the Faculty of Law and Administration at the University of Warsaw. He is an assistant professor there. He holds a PhD. He was a visiting scholar at the University of Chicago. Thank you. And his talk will be on communist show trials as presented to the wide audience on cinema screens in Poland.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for this brilliant presentation, because that was, one cannot imagine better introduction to what I'm going to say. Okay, so it's somehow different, it's somehow similar. It's about legal history and movies, and I would like to just to make a start, remind you maybe that studies on the relationship between history and film commenced many years ago, and it is therefore still surprising to see that there is insignificant presence of history of law in this on the field of studies. We have special textbooks, we have special collections of articles, and for example. There are collections of articles about legal history in the United States. We have, and one could generally speaking, say that the European history of law can have a good chance of development on that field of study. And there are some efforts, for example, a thorough analysis of the German courtroom films during the Nazi era, and it's really convincing to go through them and to analyze the legal culture of that era, or the legal consciousness, or even the message that was supposed to be given. Of course, one should remember that this kind of educational proposal is extremely popular among students, but there are also theoretical basis to do such a research, and in fact it comes from much more developed studies, fields of study like law and society or law and literature, where we have quite an opulent theoretical basis. So it seems that nothing stands in the way to take this approach seriously. And of course, I'm not going to talk about Devil's Advocate or something like this. So these typical pop culture movies that are analyzed through and through in the States. But I think that if we take it seriously, we could talk about legal propaganda in cinemas. And here, I would like to talk in particular about the Polish film Chronicles. So, just to refer to give you some opening remarks, the establishment of the communist legal order was one of the most important experiences of the European legal culture in the 20th century. Of course, all the changes in law were subordinated to propose new kind of the kind of a new society, new man. And in Eastern European countries, new orders were gradually imposed with the progress of the Red Army and the emergence of new governments dependent on Moscow. But to carry on the declared social and political revolution, it was not enough. It was not enough just to prepare new acts of law. It was necessary also to take care of the loyal staff of lawyers, to eliminate political opponents, and last but not least, to win the favor of workers and peasants. So the transition of law during the communist conquest after the Second World War took place according to the top-down pattern. So not surprisingly, the legal propaganda played a fundamental role here, and thousands, at least in case of Poland, thousands of leaflets on the subject of new laws and regulations have been printed. Communist propaganda radio broadcasts were on air, and last but not least, again, new justice had to be shown on silver screens. Among Polish film chronicles, something that may be really of interest for legal historians is the Stalinist show trials. I have chosen the period 1949-1953, and those show trials not only at courts followed the Soviet patterns, but also in their visual presentation. We have some historical analysis of how post-revolutionary justice already in the 20s became somehow theatrical, and it was developed to the perfection, almost to this dreadful perfection in the 30s, in the period of Great Terror. So cinema coverage of the show trials had its drama scheme, engaging viewers emotionally, intellectually, and consequently we can dare to say that it was some kind of dreadful legal education for the audience. Some scholars believe that this propaganda, the propaganda that was led next to the show trials, could be considered even as a meaningful and significant even today. Why? Because some images of those who were accused stayed as distorted somehow. That could be argued, but there are such opinions. And the interplay between fiction and reality in the Soviet Union became went to such an extent that one cinema historian even counted that in the period of 1933-1940 in the Soviet Union, out of the 380 feature movies, 1/6 directly dealt with sabotage and spy issues, which meant that it accompanied new acts of law on sabotage and spies. So we have this Polish film Chronicle. I should just briefly tell you what it was. Of course, that was a typical pre-television era newsreel, which meant that it should be at the same time the source of news, some comments on actual events, and of course entertainment for masses. And we have different kind of newsreels. Just to remind you a few, we have this unfamous Die Deutsche Wochenschau, from the Third Reich period. We have, of course, worldwide famous Pathé News, that became with Pathé in France. And we have Soviet Nowosti Dnia, News of the Day, newsreel series. So Polish version was just a local mutation. And as to the legal issues, in the very first episode, you don't have to look much. In the very first episode, 1945, we've got an episode on the establishment of the Special Criminal Court for the cases of treason of the Polish nation, and the title is Polish Nation Punishes. And surprisingly enough, in comparison with the movies from the typical Stalinist era, there is a big cross in front of judge, and Christian cross, and it's extremely solemn and it's extremely theatrical, but in the sense of the 30s. Why this Polish film Chronicles should be considered as something of importance? At least I can give you 3 reasons. There are, first of all, it is impossible to ignore the power of propaganda movies in the times of post-war illiteracy. That's one thing. It was possible to skip this barrier of literacy when people wanted to introduce communism. Then the impact. The popularity of Polish Film Chronicle in this period was higher than any radio broadcast, any newspaper. It was even counted that 10-minute episode reached from 4 to 5 million of people, of viewers, which meant that something that any newspaper, it was beyond any newspaper possibilities. Not to mention not to mention some obscure books about Marxism or law. We were talking about it during this morning session. And the third reason why we should take into consideration Polish Film Chronicle is that it is again the example of direct influence from the Soviet Union. Such newsreels existed in Soviet Union. We had examples of Bukharin trial that was filmed, and there were many tricks. It was really developed. It was not just a trial. It had to be a theater. So interestingly enough, Bukharin do not appear in the movie. But Wyszyński does. He's an omnipresent figure. So there were some patterns that were disseminated to the countries that became part of the Soviet bloc, and of course, those who made newsreels had to go to the perfection, because how to depict the show trial was the question of technique and ideology. That was not, it was of utmost importance to know, for example, how to comment on the action in voiceover. Then the order of scenes. Crime scenes, court scenes, sufficient visual evidence. It must be shown to the viewers. The presentation of people in the court, because the justice was given in the name of the people, and the good selection of close-ups of witnesses, prosecutors, judges, and last but not least, serious music in the background. The best is symphonic music. And I think that even today many people believe that documentaries are truer than feature movies. It's completely false. But today historians, at least some of them, underline that documentaries should be taken into consideration as a source of historical knowledge, but cannot be treated as a direct reflection of reality. The process of film editing should be instructive. One should keep it in mind. And the documentary should be seen as a work that is intentionally shaped in a narrative form. That is which gives meaning to the visual material in a form that is presented to the viewers. So there are dozens of examples. I had to choose something to show you, and as we have 20 minutes, I would like to show you just some examples. And in 1949, the Polish Film Chronicle, number 35, reported on the court case of a priest responsible for a number of murders and robberies. The title episode is Father Gurgacz Morals, or Ethics, and it's less than 1 minute, so I will try to run with the comment.
W Krakowie zakończył się proces księdza Gurgacza i 5 innych członków bandy.
It's the trial at the district, military district court in Kraków, in Poland. And here you've got...
nie jeden śmiertelny strzał.
No, it's too fast for me. The comment in voiceover was we have holy oils, the host, breviary, priest stole, and the gun which fired many fatal shots. There was something symbolic in this assembly of objects that were the objects that were found by the priest at the moment of arrest. So that's the comment when they
brewiarz, stula i rewolwer, z którego padł nie jeden śmiertelny strzał. Było coś symbolicznego w tym zestawieniu przedmiotów, jakie znaleziono przy księdzu w chwili aresztowania.
Okay, so that was about this symbolic of and then the priest admitted with all his cynicism that murdering defenseless persons was consistent with the concept of Roman Catholic ethics. He is not only a criminal, but also a sewer of crimes, poisoner of hearts and minds. And the end sentence is that the district military court in Krakow sentenced the priest and other members of the gang to death. And here the legal historian could enter, because that's the end of the movie that was seen by 4 to 5 million of people. And viewers, of course, had no idea that under this ambiguous word gang, there was the organization, the Polish Underground Army of Independence, that the judgment of the district military court was given on the 14th of August, and a month later the priest was shot in the back of his head. And the whole story, there is a large background that I should skip, but to make the long story short, in 2008 the President of Poland posthumously awarded this priest with Commander's Cross. So there is even this very close part of the story from this movie. Okay, another example, the blood on the door of separate cells. That's just the beginning of the next year. It was possible to see another show trial, newsreel, with clergymen. And this time viewers were able to see the extensive visual material. Again, I have to run with...
Budynek zakładu wychowawczo-leczniczego
Okay, so we have the...
Ojcowie Bonifatrzy wychowywali i leczyli dzieci chore na epilepsję.
This is the educational and medicinal establishment led by Brothers Hospitallers of St. John of God. Gloomy rooms, dirty beds, blood traces on doors of separate cells. We're going to see it.
Ponure cele. Brudne barmogi.
Okay, dirty beds.
Liczne ślady krwi.
Blood traces on the doors of separate cells. This was a torture chamber, not the educational and medicinal establishment. So you see, the camera started with the alleged crime scenes, and then wandered into the courtroom. As one could see, that's how they wanted to go to the perfection of showing the show trial, because it should emotionally and intellectually be convincing for the viewers that most of them had absolutely no idea about the law. And as we have told today, many lawyers had no idea what the new law is. So this emotional impact was so important to get some pervert effect of catharsis, because verdict at the end of this movie was somehow some kind of relief. The abbot of the convent was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Others were sentenced to from 2 to 4 years, and so on. But again, the film editing process was of such a propaganda importance that here show trials were involved in a broader narrative, because the very next episode, I'm not going to show it, we have no time, but the very next episode of this newsreel was just a cheerful story about women in the new communist organization, the Service of Poland. We could easily find a lot of examples of the priests on trial that were put on trial, but there were also military forces that were put on trial, and I don't know if we have time, but in 1951, the Supreme Military Court in Warsaw, the case concerned generals and colonels, the traitors on trial. I will show you, that's a very long material, so I could only show you the beginning. And traitors on trial, Supreme Military Court in Warsaw. the case about sabotage and espionage gang operating in the Polish army. The persons that were accused were presented on screen in person and already described as guilty of the crime. Only then the viewer was supposed to learn about the court's decision. So here there are faces of them, of those generals and colonels that were accused, with a voiceover that presents them as 100% guilty persons. And here, because we are running out of time, here it's extremely interesting to see the grains of fiction, of course, in this material. The whole trial was fake. The whole trial was fake. It was all set up. But interestingly enough, no one explained that the court decisions were made. There were no acts of law that were given. No one said that there was criminal code of the Polish army, the special decree from June 1946, and perhaps rightly so. Just to give you one example, the whole trial was supervised from the highest authorities, and there were given orders up to the very last moment, and it turned out that the verdict was prepared according to the Article 86 of the Criminal Code of the Polish Army, and the authorities demanded the life imprisonment sentence. That was a problem because, in fact, the Article 86 had not such a punishment. So, but the objection of lawyers were overruled, and they sentenced according to the political will. And that was the grain of fiction. But how about the grain of truth? The trial was fake, but and defendants were brutally tortured. But years later, one historian found that a part that there was one general that he did not admit all the crimes that he has committed. It turned out to be legally extremely complicated, therefore, but his last words were not in the files. What happened? It turned out that they are on this chronicle. A part of it, of course, but that was the missing, and that was the truth, a part of the truth in this pack of lies. Of course, again, we can go with this movie up to the period of the Third Republic of Poland, so to now, because eventually all those generals and colonels were fully rehabilitated after the collapse of communism. So, as to the conclusion, cinematic propaganda could do, legal propaganda could do without any acts of law. That's for the masses. Then we cannot use such divisions, theoretical divisions that were proposed, as we could talk about documentary movies and art movie performances and things like that. It simply doesn't work, because even with the social realism movies, traditional division into documentaries and feature movies simply was erased, on purpose was erased. However, it is interesting to remind that today we historians think that, they humbly admit that the past is transferred to other generations, and in such a way that we should be aware of some verbal fictions and visual fictions, because each medium has its own set of inevitably fictitious elements. Mark Farrow in 1971 wrote, "The content of the movie, however, always goes beyond what you see. It allows you to get to the realm of history that is hidden, elusive, invisible, and therefore, as a medium, the movie reveals more than a sender would like to reveal." And I think that at least I have shown you that with the Polish Film Chronicles, it's also true. Thank you very much.